Have you ever noticed that two people can go through something equally painful, yet years later it seems to have stayed with one of them far more than the other? I've been thinking about that recently, not because I believe some people simply move on more easily, or because certain experiences shouldn't leave a mark. Life doesn't work like that. What I've been wondering is something slightly different. What is it that allows one experience to become part of our history, while another subtly becomes part of our identity? I don't believe that happens all at once. I believe it happens gradually, almost without us noticing. We revisit the same conversation. We replay the same memory. We tell ourselves the same story about what had happened. And eventually it becomes one of the ways we explain who we are. I've caught myself thinking about this because there have been times in my own life when I've realized I was carrying something much longer than it had any practical relevance. Not because it hadn't mattered, it had. And not because it hadn't hurt, it had. Because I could feel it continuing to shape the present long after the event itself had finished. I sometimes wonder whether this is one of the hardest things to recognize in ourselves. We become so used to carrying something that we stop noticing the weight. It's a bit like wearing a heavy backpack every single day. At first, you're constantly aware of it. Eventually, however, it simply feels like normal. You adjust how you walk. You compensate without thinking. You almost forget it's there until someone asks why you're carrying it. That question can feel surprisingly difficult to answer. Letting go it really isn't about forgetting. It's not even about reaching a point where something no longer matters. Some experiences will always matter. Some losses will always be significant. Some unfairness will always have been unfair. None of that changes. What can change is the amount of space we allow these experiences to occupy in our lives today. There's a subtle difference between remembering something and living alongside it every single day. I've become more aware of that difference over the years. Perhaps that's simply part of getting older. Perhaps it's because of living in different countries has given me enough distance to question some of the things I once accepted without even thinking about them. Or perhaps it's because listening to other people's stories has shown me how differently we all carry what life gives us. One thing I have noticed, though, through supporting women, is that they rarely want someone else to fix their lives. More often, they're simply tired. Tired of holding everything together. Tired of carrying thoughts they haven't had anywhere to put down. Tired of trying to make sense of something that's been quietly following them for much longer than they realized. Sometimes nothing particularly remarkable happens in those conversations. There's no huge breakthrough, just the experience of saying something out loud to someone who isn't trying to rush it away. I've come to believe that's more valuable than we often realize, because once something is shared, it can begin to exist outside your own head for a while, You no longer have to be the only person carrying it. That's one of the reasons personal support has always felt so meaningful to me. It isn't about having all the answers. It's about creating enough space for someone to notice what they have been carrying, how long they've been carrying it, and whether they still want to continue doing so. I don't believe we'll ever reach a point where life stops giving us difficult experiences. That's simply part of being human. Perhaps the question should be this, though. When you look at the things you've carried through your life, which ones still deserve a place in the present? And which ones have simply become familiar because they've been travelling beside you for so long?